I'm a junior in college. I don't have a ton of expenses because I'm fortunate enough to have my family cover the big stuff. Tuition, housing, the bills. But anything beyond that comes out of my own pocket. So I picked up Uber driving this year because the hours are flexible, and you can do it around classes without it feeling like a real job. I had been doing it maybe 2 months before this happened. This was a Friday. I had been out for a couple hours already. Normal rides, bar traffic mostly. It was around 10:30 when a new request came through. The pickup location was 20 minutes away, which was fine. I accepted it and started following the GPS. The route took me out of town and onto a state highway. After about 10 minutes, I got pulled off the highway onto an unmarked turn. Gravel, single lane, cutting straight into dense trees. Nothing indicating anything was down there. The headlights on my old Camry weren't great, and on that road they were almost useless. I could only see maybe 15 feet ahead. I slowed down to almost nothing. After a minute or so, the road just ended. No turnaround, no clearing, it just stopped. I checked the app. It said I'd arrived at the pickup location. There was no one there, just trees in every direction and the sound of my engine idling. I sat in the car for a moment trying to work out if I'd missed something. I typed into the app asking the passenger if they could share more detail on the location. No response. I figured I must have taken a wrong turn somewhere on the gravel and got out to look around. I stepped in front of the headlights to see if there was a path or a fork I'd missed. There wasn't. I was about to get back in when I saw the light. Off to the left, maybe 40 or 50 feet into the trees. A single pale light, dim, completely still. I stood there holding my phone trying to decide if it was a porch light on a house I somehow missed. It was too dim to illuminate anything around it. Then it slowly moved behind a tree and disappeared. I took a step back toward the car. My mind was cycling through explanations and not landing on any good ones. If this was the passenger, why were they standing in the trees in the dark instead of at the road? That's when I heard the footsteps. It was getting closer, fast. I couldn't see much in front of me beyond the reach of the headlights, just something quickly moving toward me. I didn't wait to see what it was. I got in the car, did a 3-point turn as fast as I could on the narrow road and started driving back. Maybe after 10 seconds, my headlights swept the tree line on the right side and I saw him. A man running through the trees parallel to the road, full sprint, angled toward the gravel ahead of me. He was trying to reach the road before I did. I floored it. It was close. He broke out of the tree line maybe 10 feet behind my rear bumper as I passed. I saw him in the mirror for a second, standing in the middle of the gravel road watching me go, before the tree line curved and blocked him out. I got back to the highway and drove straight home. When I got back, I looked up the coordinates from the pickup request on Google Maps. I spent about 20 minutes going back and forth on the satellite view. There are no houses on that road, no structures of any kind. The road dead ends exactly where my GPS stopped me, and beyond it is just undeveloped forest for a long way in every direction. Someone created a pickup request to get a driver out to that specific spot at that specific time. They knew the road, they knew where it ended. They had at least one person in the trees when I got there, and possibly more. I have no way of knowing. The light I saw, the footsteps, the man running to cut off the road, none of that was one person acting randomly. I reported it through the app and got an automated response. I called the non-emergency line, and they took a report. I don't know if anything came of either. I still drive, but now I make sure to double-check where the pickup point is. I'm 27, and for the past couple of years, I've supported myself through a mix of freelance work and pet-sitting gigs. I've done maybe 15 or 20 sits at this point, and until last month, nothing had ever gone wrong. The family who hired me for this one had a place on a lake in northern Michigan. It was the kind of place that creaks in the wind and has light switches in unexpected places. It was a 2-story with a wide porch facing the water and an overgrown garden running down to a small private dock. Beautiful in the way old lakeside houses are, which is partly the view and partly the feeling that time moves differently there. They had one dog, a Rottweiler named Max, about 6 years old. They showed me his feeding schedule, where his lead hung by the back door, which spot on the couch he'd claimed as his own. We got along immediately. The handover took about an hour, and then they were gone. The first day was genuinely lovely. I walked Max along the lakeside path in the morning, chilled in the house most of the day, and read on the porch in the afternoon with the water in front of me. The nearest neighbor was far enough away that I couldn't see their property. The road to the house was a long private lane through trees. It was the most isolated job I have done, but in a way that felt peaceful rather than unsettling. I went to bed early and slept well. The second morning I took Max out early, same path along the lake. It had rained overnight and the ground along the bank was soft and dark. We were maybe 10 minutes from the house when I noticed the footprints. They were in the mud right at the edge of the path where it ran closest to the water. Their direction was from the tree line, towards the house. I followed them with my eyes back along the path the way I'd come. They went all the way to the garden, right up toward the back of the house. There were no prints going the other way. I stood there trying to work out a normal explanation. The owners before they left, maybe. A walker who'd come off the tree line and looped back a different way. I couldn't make any of it hold. I took Max inside, locked the back door, and told myself I was overthinking it. Nothing else happened that day. I stayed closer to the house than I'd planned, which I justified as not wanting Max to get muddy again. By evening, I'd mostly talked myself down. Old house, unfamiliar surroundings, I was probably just adjusting. I made dinner, watched something on my laptop, and went to bed around 11 with Max at the foot of the mattress. The next thing I remember is waking up to thunder. I lied there for a second, orienting myself, listening to the rain come down hard against the glass. Then I heard Max. He was growling somewhere in the room. I figured it was the storm. Dogs spook at thunder. It wasn't unusual. I called his name and told him to settle. He didn't. I called him again, firmer this time. Still nothing. I sat up and turned on the bedside lamp. He was standing at the bedroom door facing the hallway, completely rigid, not even glancing back at me when I spoke. Whatever he was focused on had nothing to do with the thunder. I got up, put my hand on his collar, and opened the door. The hallway was dark and empty. I stood there listening for a full minute. The rain was loud against the roof, but the house was still. Max stayed tight against my leg, and I let him lead. He pulled me through the whole upstairs floor and finally to a guest bedroom I hadn't used or looked into since I arrived. He stopped in front of the closed door. The growling dropped even lower. I stood behind him with my phone torch on and told myself it was nothing. Maybe a draft moving something inside. I pushed the door open with my foot. It was dark, but with the flashlight I could see a bed, a dresser, half-open curtains letting in a little bit of light. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. But suddenly Max started barking and lunging forward against my grip at the wall. I pulled him back by the collar, and that's when I saw the closet. The door was ajar, maybe 4 inches, the inside completely dark. I pointed my flashlight at the closet. Low down in the gap I saw a face. It was dirty. The person looked like he hadn't showered in weeks. He had streaks of dirt smeared on his cheeks, dark greasy hair. Also, it was too close to the floor, like whoever it was had been crouching for a very long time. But the eyes were what got me. They were open wide and fixed directly on me. Not startled, not afraid, not anything I had a name for. Wild in a way that I can't even express. I couldn't hold eye contact with it for more than a split second. I don't even remember deciding to move. I was just suddenly in the hallway, through the kitchen, out the back door, and in my car with Max. I drove to the end of the private lane, pulled over on the main road, and with shaking hands, called 911. 2 officers arrived and searched the house. They came out and told me it was clear, no sign of forced entry on any window or door. I told them about the footprints from the morning and walked them down to the lakeside path to show them, but the rain had washed everything away. The officers looked at me with a look that made me feel slightly crazy. What they did find was the closet. The hanging rod inside had been removed and placed on the floor, clearing space to crouch in. There was a water bottle tucked in the back corner that didn't belong to the family. The officers confirmed that with a quick call to the owners. Someone had been in there long enough to need water. The theory was that the person had been watching the property, knew the family was away, and hadn't expected a pet sitter to be inside. But I call that BS. Judging just from the way he looked, I don't think he was there to rob the place. I took Max back to my place that night. The family cut their trip short and were back the following evening, shaken and apologetic. I told them it wasn't their fault because it wasn't. I think about that night sometimes, the way Max stood at that bedroom door in the dark and just wouldn't come back to bed. I wonder what would have happened if I'd slept through it. I'm a 28-year-old girl, and I work part-time at a dental office doing admin, which sounds more stable than it actually is. The hours aren't consistent, but my rent, unfortunately, is. So on Friday and Saturday nights, I do DoorDash to fill the gap. It's not bad, mostly just boring. You get to know the roads, figure out which restaurants are always behind, learn pretty quickly which orders aren't worth what they're paying. I've gotten better at saying no to the latter now. 3 weeks ago, I was doing my usual routine. It was around 1:15 on a Saturday, and I was ready to be done for the night. So I told myself one last order and then I'll head home. The drop-off was further out than I normally go, past the suburbs and into the kind of area where the streetlights stop and the houses get further apart. The delivery itself was completely normal, but now I was 35 minutes from home on roads I didn't really know, by myself, at almost 2 in the morning. I turned around and started heading back the way my GPS had me going. Clear night, music on low, just driving. Maybe 10 minutes in, I saw a car parked on the shoulder up ahead with the interior light on. As I got closer, I could see a man standing outside it facing the road, and when my headlights hit him, he raised his hand and waved me down. My first instinct was honestly to just keep going and not deal with it, but something in my gut just told me to slow down, so I did. I pulled up alongside him and cracked my window maybe 4 inches. He was older, maybe late 50s, dark fleece jacket, just a regular-looking dude. He started talking before I even said anything. He told me there was a tree down across the road about a mile ahead, said it had fallen a couple hours ago and there was no getting around it, that he'd already turned back himself. Then he said there was a forest road about half a mile down on the left that cut through and came back out on the main route further along, and that it would add about 10 minutes to my route, but it was the only way through. I said thanks and drove off. And look, nothing about him was overtly weird. He didn't come toward the car, didn't ask me for anything, wasn't aggressive at all. But the further I got, the more something bothered me about it, and I kept trying to figure out what. I think it was how calm he was, and how prepared the explanation felt. Like every part of it was already worked out before I pulled up. When people are flagging down strangers late at night, they're usually a bit all over the place, a bit sorry to bother you. He wasn't any of that. He was just very calm and very certain. I got to the forest road exactly where he said it would be. Single track going straight into trees, no signs, no reflectors, dark. I sat there with my indicator on looking down it, and then I just turned the indicator off and kept going straight. The road ahead was completely fine. No tree, no debris, nothing. I drove the whole way home without seeing another car. I didn't sleep much. I just replayed the whole situation over and over again and kept getting stuck on the same thing. What would have happened if I'd turned down that road? The obvious explanation is, I misunderstood him. Maybe the tree was on a different road. Maybe it had already been cleared. I went back and forth on that for a few days. Then on Tuesday afternoon, I decided to drive back out there because I knew I wasn't going to stop thinking about it until I did. In the daytime, it was just a road. I found the forest track no problem and pulled up to it. Dirt path going through pine trees, some tire tracks in the dirt. Completely ordinary looking. I felt a bit stupid, honestly. I left my car running and walked in. First stretch was fine, maybe 100 yards, the track curving gently, light coming through the trees. I kept going a bit further than I needed to probably, I think because nothing was jumping out, and I wanted to feel like the whole thing was nothing. The track bent right and it turned into a crossroad. I couldn't see the entrance behind me anymore. The trees were closer together here. I came around the bend and stopped. There was a rope tied around a tree trunk about 20 feet ahead, knotted at chest height, tied properly. The other end had been cut, and the tail that was left was frayed badly, like something had been pulled against it hard, and for a while. It hadn't been there long. The cut end was still pale and clean looking, not weathered at all. I stood there for a bit trying to think of a normal reason for it and couldn't get to one. There was nothing else around it, just the rope on the tree, the woods, and the quiet. I turned around and walked back. I didn't run. I just walked and tried to keep the pace normal and not look back more than once. Got to my car, locked the doors, and got out of there as quickly as I could. I've thought about calling the police, but I know what that call sounds like, and I know what comes of it, which is probably someone driving out, looking around, finding nothing worth filing, and moving on. I don't blame them. There's nothing there that's technically a crime. I still do the same routes on weekends because I need to. I just don't accept orders anymore that take me out past where the streetlights end. The man by the car I've tried to picture clearly since then, and I can't really get his face. I remember the jacket. I remember his hand going up when he waved me down. I remember exactly how he turned and pointed down the road, like he'd already known which direction I'd need to go. That last part I keep coming back to. I'm not sure why it bothers me as much as it does. I think because I just didn't notice it at the time.